Hello, everybody. I'm Jesse Waters, along with Kimberly Guilfoyle, Juan Williams, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 9 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. On the heels of that despicable beheading stunt by Kathy Griffin, yet another similar sick controversy is brewing tonight here in New York City. A mock assassination of President Trump. Tonight was opening night of the New York Public Theater's production of Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. The title character bears a not-so-subtle resemblance to our president, and true to script, he is assassinated in the play. The theater stands by its show, but it's facing heavy backlash. Sponsors Delta and Bank of America dropping their financial support. Not Time Warner, though. That's the parent company of CNN. CNN fired Griffin last month for posing with that bloody severed head. So why is it still sponsoring this outrage? One of its stars, Fareed Zakaria, is even encouraging people to go see the play, calling it a masterpiece. We should note, 2012 version of Caesar in Minnesota featured an actor dressed like President Obama in the title role. So, Greg, the left has a fascination with assassination.
And very good.
I believe that it's more than just political pornography. I think it's deeper than that. I think under the guise of art, there's something that they want to see happen. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, first of all, I want to defend Fareed Zakaria. I think he didn't actually see the play. He overheard someone else and copied him.
Are you referring to his plagiarism scandal?
Maybe I am. Maybe I am referring to his plagiarism scandal.
Well, I wanted to make sure the audience knew. Not everybody watches CNN.
No, that's right. That was good. Look, the one thing that that you don't want to fall into this false equivalency thing. Like it was done before with President Obama in the 2012. However, no one talked about it because no one really noticed it. There wasn't I don't think his wife was in the play. In this one, it's so obviously hammered down that this is Trump that they had a Melania type there, and it was just a much more brutal thing. It was more subtle with Obama. With this, it was like, no, we are killing Trump, and we are killing Trump because you know what? It's the easiest way to get applause among the people that are coming to this play. The assumption is if you're in Central Park, everybody there in New York is going to love this. It's like a comic coming out and going, so, hey, Chicago, and everybody applauds. It's the easiest way. It's cowardly. It's opportunistic. It's unoriginal. It's attention-seeking. To your point, is this something that they happen to gravitate towards? Yeah, ever since the 60s, it's been about portraying the right as evil, not wrong. It started when they blamed the Vietnam War on Nixon, when it wasn't Nixon, and then they started calling our troops baby killers. It started there. When you could demonize the other side, you're free to say whatever you want.
Kimberly, what kind of pressure do you think this play is under right now? We've had two big-time sponsors drop out. And as you know, Time Warner, CNN's parent company, it's behind it. Do you predict this thing is going to have to drop this act, or do you think they're going to stick to their guns?
Well, if any kind of like morality and civility were at play here, it shouldn't even be occurring. If this was President Obama and they behaved in this fashion, you cannot even imagine the international outrage. I think this is so sickening and so sad. There is no civility left whatsoever. I mean, to do this type of thing and people go and pay to see it?
It's free, right?
I mean...
Yeah, you have to stand in line for hours.
Well, okay, fine, whatever, fine. Yeah. You should actually have to pay a penance.
That's why they have corporate
Pay a penance.
You have to pay a penance, in my opinion. But, yes, stand in line. It's not that easy to get the tickets to go in for Shakespeare.
They stand in line for, like, they spend the night for, like, 2 nights in the park.
Well, my point, you have to pay somebody to go sit in line for you.
It's like a Katy Perry concert. You sleep out in sleeping bags.
But it's really true. And then for them to do something like this, has anybody even learned any lesson? And why is Time Warner, why are they still sponsoring this?
It's a great question. And then Fareed Zakaria.
Fareed's retraction, or just say, I apologize, I shouldn't have said that. I mean, God help us if he actually saw it and actually endorsed it.
Do you think Fareed Zakaria might have to walk back saying this assassination play is a masterpiece, Dana?
I don't know. Well, I don't know how many get-out-of-jail-free cards we all get in terms of, like, if you're making public statements and you're giving your opinion. But I think on this part, like, I wouldn't go stand in line for this. I also probably wouldn't go to this play anyway because it's, like, you know.
It's not even
I like Shakespeare, kind of.
It's not even a good Shakespearean play.
Right, exactly.
It's no Macbeth or Hamlet. It's no Othello.
But I also feel like I'm just for free speech.
You're so cultured, Greg.
I like Hamlet.
Yes.
My point is, I'm for free speech, and so if they want to do this, they can do this. Like the Kathy Griffin thing, I thought it was gross, and I wouldn't have bought a ticket to her event. I wouldn't watch her shows. Like, free speech does not mean that it is free of consequences. And now what you basically have is the right adopting tactics from the left to call for boycotts, right? And somebody like our own Sean Hannity fought back very hard by an attempt from the left to try to take over his show, or to try to go after him and say boycott his show. He fought back in a way that was successful. And I think that we're going to have to realize artists are going to keep doing this, right? They're going to get attention. If the corporations aren't going to be able to sponsor this, then they'll find someone. George Soros will pay for it.
Did the corporate sponsors cave because of conservative pressure groups? Is that what happened? Or is this just something that went on the Drudge Report and it got a little attention?
Everybody's calling for boycotts of everything. We just saw right before we came to air that J.P. Morgan is looking at the possibility of not sponsoring an NBC show that would air next weekend. I mean, basically, it's a call for a boycott if you don't like it. And whereas I am just saying, I think free speech is a principle that we could go back to, just respecting each other when it comes to that.
Juan, riddle me this. The left likes to say when Republicans use the phrase radical Islam, it makes the terrorists want to kill us even more. But then these left-wingers put these assassination plays and productions out. Shouldn't there, by their own logic, aren't they encouraging kooks to do something more dangerous?
I don't think so. I don't think this is a 400-year-old play called Julius Caesar, written by this.
I'm familiar with it.
Well, you must not be, because it's the same plot.
Yeah, but Trump's not the main character in the traditional
I don't get this conversation. We just said, right in the intro, Barack Obama was cast as the Julius Caesar in 2012. And people saw that
in Minnesota.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, not in Central Park.
So I didn't. I mean, I don't get it.
A lot of attention in Minnesota. No offense to Minnesota.
Wow. I mean, I don't get it. So
but
the whole idea of free speech and the whole idea of art as provocative, and especially at this time in America where you have such polarized politics and such discontent on either side.
So this helps reduce that.
So what you do is you have to speak to the energy, the spirit of these times. And these times are not happy times in America in terms of the political discourse, in terms of the politics.
Times of assassination?
No. And you keep coming back to this. Let me just say, I don't think this play endorses assassination. To the contrary, if you watch the play generates sympathy for Julius Caesar, Donald Trump, in the aftermath of the assassination. So, to me, this is like, the right looking for something to find grievance.
So this is helping the president?
I don't know. It's not supposed to help or hurt. It's art.
Okay. No one's censoring the play. The government is not saying we are banning this production. I think people think it's distasteful. It's disrespectful.
If you think it's distasteful, don't go.
Right, and people aren't going, and then some of the sponsors are
That's not
out.
true. That's not true. This play is very popular, and is, as Kimberly...
It'll be more so now.
Yeah, I mean, people are flocking to the play because it's controversial.
Because it's a cheap thrill to controversy to try to generate profit.
That's fine, but there was a line before.
Juan, how do you feel about what they do to the original work? Do you think you have to stay true to the original work? Or so anybody can politicize? If you write a play and you die, and your play's out there, and somebody can then politicize it by moving it around or putting some political meaning in, which is what they're doing. Do you think that's okay, that somebody can basically bastardize?
It's not bastardize. It's modernize. It's make it contemporary.
So they have a better...
No, hang on. And this is what happened with Hamilton. Hamilton is the #1 show in New York City.
Overrated.
All right. But let me just say, many Americans love Hamilton. Huge winner in the awards, okay?
Bad rap.
And you know what? Guess what?
Bad rapping.
Hamilton speaks directly to so many issues of current concern in American life, especially immigration, but in large part the whole notion that, guess what? These founding fathers are heroes that cross time and cross racial lines.
Can we just
let's do Taming of the Shrew with Pelosi or Warren or Clinton. Are you good with that one?
And that's a great point, because listen, this is not just in a vacuum.
More art.
George W. Bush's head was on a stake in Game of Thrones. At the Toronto Film Festival, a play called, I think it was, The Death of a President, about killing George W. Bush, won an award. They've had Kathy Griffin behead Donald Trump. They've had De Niro say he wants to punch out the president. Madonna wants to bomb the White House. This isn't just like a one-off. This is something that's in the bloodstream of the left.
So does reality win.
I don't think it's...
Some people say enough is enough.
No, I don't think it's any bloodstream. I thought what Kathy Griffin did was offensive. I mean, I thought it wasn't funny.
I'm saying it's a pattern.
No, there's no pattern.
You're saying it's much ado about nothing.
7 things.
No. You make up 7 things and say it's a pattern.
Okay, Juan, fact check.
Yeah.
1 year ago, a terror attack tore apart Orlando. Radical Islam was to blame. But the mainstream media is still fixated on the weapon. Greg sets him straight up next.
On the 1-year anniversary of the Orlando terror attack, how is it being remembered? The Washington Post left out the massacre's cause. The only reference to Islamic State is actually in a caption. Yet it had no problem calling the attack another example of gun violence, which I guess makes Hurricane Katrina water violence. A better way to honor victims is to remind us why they were killed, not how they were killed. After 9/11, you don't honor the dead by saying they were murdered by a plane and a box cutter. They were killed because of radical Islam. And the gays and lesbians murdered at the Pulse, same thing. So a year later, the press obscures facts in the name of political correctness. So a terrorist can gun down gays, but hey, let's target the outrage that follows instead. A piece in the New York Times, it was called A Night of Terror, A Year of Racism, focused on critics of radical Islam. Not racist if it's a set of ideas. Just remember that. And he said the response to the attack was a missed opportunity for gun reform. Once again, terrorism always exposes enablers in their flaccid response to evil. This weekend, there were protests against Sharia law, mocked by the media who smeared them at times as far right. How crazy is it that if you come out against intolerant, sexist, homophobic, deadly tyranny, it's you who is the problem? By the way, yesterday was another anniversary. The first hanging of a witch took place in Salem, Massachusetts in 1692. If our modern media were around then, they would side with the hangmen. So, KG...
I have a solution.
Yes, tell me.
Thank you so much for calling on me.
Yes.
I know I inserted myself into the discussion rather forcefully.
Yes.
Fine. Call it a travel ban on countries that murder gays and lesbians. How about that?
Yeah.
How about people that practice Sharia law?
Sail right through.
Sail right through. Ninth Circuit, I call you out. Try and do that. Countries that don't honor, marriage equality, that murder gays and lesbians, that believe women don't have any rights, that stone women to death, that if a family member rapes them and they're 13 years old, they get killed, that believe in genital mutilation. How about that? Would that be okay?
You know what, though? I don't think it would be. I think they would still defend it. There are people that came out against the anti-Sharia marches, and they consider themselves feminists, defending something that would kill them.
Yeah, when they have the climate rallies, they don't call those far left. Those are mainstream, and it's a bunch of moms with their kids. There's a lot of things you want to remember about what happened in Orlando. One, this guy was fired from his job for saying horrible things about Jews and Fort Hood and women. And the FBI interviewed this guy 3 times, and they still didn't get it right. The guy targeted a gay club partially because it was gay, and after the attack, it was ISIS-inspired. The president tried to spin it as something about gun violence, but it was not. It was a 9mm pistol and a sport rifle. So when the Washington Post comes out here and whitewashes it, that just makes this war on terror more dangerous because it hides the truth. And no one that reads the Washington Post buys into this. When they play word games, we see through it. We're not that stupid. We're not duped by these games you're playing. So I think the Washington Post thinks they're smarter than their readers, and they actually aren't. We know how dangerous it is.
Dana, they focus on tools, but we know it's been cars, trucks, bombs, knives, planes, and vans.
Right. Well, and they didn't talk about the ideology at all.
No.
Which is basically, remember, he calls the 911 call, reveals that he calls and he says, I'm doing this on behalf of Allah.
Yeah.
Also, the articles did not mention the wife's involvement and how they had to track her down, remember? And they said, oh, she said, I had nothing to do with it. And then, oh, wait, maybe she did. And then there was a lot more to this than gun violence. Gun violence is terrible, too. But hiding this was a surprise to me. I actually read the article twice before I responded because I thought surely I must have missed something.
Right.
And I was really surprised I didn't.
You know, Juan, if we can't kill these ghouls, if we keep blaming their acts on other things, it will weaken our resolve. You can't, it just keeps you from, and maybe that's why when we're fighting ISIS, we're not fighting it to our fullest capability because we keep thinking, oh, maybe they have a point.
I think we are fighting ISIS to our fullest capability, especially I would think that people who are Trump supporters would say we're fighting them more aggressively than ever.
Now we are.
Okay. Oh, that's what I just said. Okay. So I don't know where that comes from. But to my mind, I think the Washington Post was focused on the sadness, the loss of life for those families and the people who were killed. It was not about that. Now, I think they were wrong not to mention it for sure. I don't see how you can do that because, as Dana just said, it's mentioned in the phone call when he claims, you know, I'm doing this. Now, he was never connected to any larger network or anything like that, but mention would have been, I think, sufficient. The question is, just as in the protest about Sharia law, what is going on the right where the right thinks, oh, gee, we're going to buy into this because we want some grievance. We see that everybody's walking all over us. We think something's wrong. I don't understand why the right feels this way.
Can I help you understand?
Yeah, help me.
Yeah, I looked at the protests in England, and they weren't the right. There were Sikhs, there were gays, there were minorities that were there, and the media, BBC, I think it was BBC, I can't remember, BBC 3, I'm not sure, called them far right. They weren't. They were just people that were finally tired of it. They were pissed off. They were like, people in Manchester are dying. People in London Bridge are dying. We don't want to die. I think they're part of the we don't want to die party.
No, I think when you get someone like President Trump, who in the aftermath of what took place there, immediately said, I was right. You think, what is going on? You were right about Islamic terror. What are you right about? And then this morning, when he comes back at it again, you understand, this is being politicized, and the right somehow delights in it.
You know what the thing is?
No one delights
very
in it.
The politicization of a terror attack that killed people.
In the loss of
they called Benghazi about a video. They called Fort Hood workplace violence. There's always a spin when there's the president who's a Democrat in charge, and it happens on his watch.
You guys are so insecure that you're always on your back heels reacting to someone else. Just react to the facts. Just stick with the facts.
The facts were it was radical Islam that perpetrated the attack.
I think the facts. Listen, the fact is this guy was a nutcase. This guy was a deeply disturbed, troubled person, and then he takes the moment and attributes it to radical Islam.
ISIS
this is a perfect example. You have absolutely no solutions, Juan. When anybody says, hey, this is a product of a new kind of strategy by ISIS to incite people to do this. You go, oh, he's nothing, no worries, and you're politicizing it.
Lone wolf.
No. I think President Trump specifically politicized it when he wrote, appreciates the congrats for being right on radical terrorism. What is going on?
Why are you more upset about Trump?
Well, that's
what I'm just telling
radical Islam.
I'm not upset about anybody who's intentionally politicizes a tragedy.
Here's the problem. Juan wants to focus and somehow try to find an opportunity out of weakness to try to blame a president who's frustrated by the loss of life. He hasn't done anything wrong here.
Politicizing tragedy is wrong,
The Washington Post
being a coward
glossed over this. They didn't mention the word terrorism, terror, ISIS, Islam, Muslim, al-Baghdadi.
I don't think anybody is being cowardly.
If you don't want to talk about radical Islam, you're a coward. If you want to blame Trump for it because of his tweets, you're a coward.
No, I'm telling you
and he said that the right delights in this, in the loss of life.
Politicize this and try to make it a political issue when what we all should be doing.
But that's what you're doing.
So people who lost loved ones in 9/11, their outrage is, of course, political.
No, that's not comparable.
You're saying anybody who is outraged and says something about it is politicized.
Greg. Okay, Greg, you should think about what I'm saying.
I am. That's why I'm about to throw up.
President Obama blamed Benghazi on a video.
Because that is just wrong, Greg.
What? President Obama blamed Benghazi on a video to save his general election. If that's not politicizing tragedy, I don't know what is.
You are
way back. Long ago.
Why don't you come to the table? Let's discuss this.
All right, we got to go. Directly ahead, the media may be distracted by the Russian investigation, but what about the president's first cabinet meeting? We'll show you ahead.
There's an incredible, talented group of people in this room. Together, we're working every day, and we've been working very hard together for our country to protect their safety, bringing back jobs into our country, and putting always America first.
Today, President Trump assembled his full cabinet for the first time, taking some of the media's focus off the Russia investigation for half a second. Each cabinet member got a chance to speak one by one around the table, and here's a sampling.
Mr. President, it's a privilege to serve the students of this country.
We are engaged with our allies to ensure that they know where our common interests lie, what our expectations are.
It's an honor to represent the men and women of the Department of Defense, and we are grateful for the sacrifices our people are making in order to strengthen our military.
It's an incredible privilege to lead the men and women who are providing intelligence so that we can do the national security mission. And in the finest tradition to say, I'm not going to say a damn thing in front of the media.
The president took the opportunity to give a progress report on his administration's accomplishments.
Never has there been a president, with few exceptions, in the case of FDR, he had a major depression to handle, who's passed more legislation, who's done more things than what we've done. Between the executive orders and the job-killing regulations that have been terminated, 700,000 jobs have been created in a very short period of time since the election. If we would have said that almost $4 trillion in the stock markets has been created, everybody would have laughed at us. They would have said, oh, that's ridiculous. But that's what it is.
All right, Jesse, that was the public portion of the cabinet meeting, but really the behind the scenes of like getting down to work. They got a lot to do. They finally have their full cabinet in place after the Democrats sort of slow-walked some of them. The administration was slow to nominate some of them, but now they have it, and the priorities are in place, and they're trying to move forward.
They are, and they have a lot of heavy lifting to do. I think everybody acknowledges that. I think people forget that Trump's biggest accomplishment was preventing Hillary from coming into the White House.
And Gorsuch confirmation. People sort of forget.
Very true.
I'm surprised that he doesn't mention that. I mean, that is a huge accomplishment.
Anytime that's mentioned, that gets a lot of applause. But I think the president really prevented the country from going over a cliff. Right now, he's like an EMT. He's in rescue mode still. Then we're going to get to resuscitation. Right now, rescue mode looks like pulling out of Paris, pulling out of TTP, stopping this regulation nation onslaught, repealing Obamacare in the House. And then when you get to the resuscitation, then that's when you start moving forward with legislation, actually replacing Obamacare, loosening up coal mine regulations, doing things like building the wall. Those things are actually going to have more impact. And I think right now he's in the transition period, and he's going to get to that. But you can't dismiss the economy. You know, you're going to have a big GDP year, almost 1 million jobs created since the election, regulations slashed. That does not get talked about enough. And gangbangers are being deported, so there is a lot of progress being made, just not fast enough as everybody would like.
That's a good point on the regulation piece, Kimberly, that I think the administration, it's hard to measure how regulation can actually be like a lead blanket on the economy. And as I think when he's talking about accomplishments, there are things that he's done that by executive order that don't get a lot of attention because they look like they're really small ball, but for businesses, they mean a lot.
Yeah. They do. You're making a great point because it's really in large measure due to the cutting the regulations that we've seen the positive impact on the numbers. Just doing that alone has really been, forceful in terms of something that's like pushing the economy, the job numbers, everything forward. It's been the catalyst to be able to produce some of those positive numbers. But, good luck, and I hope you have a lot of time to spend if you go on Google or Bing and try to find a positive story about Trump or the recovery of the economy. And if you find one, it's going to credit the President Obama economy for these instead of cutting back on the regulations, et cetera, which really has been the stimulus for some of this. So, I mean, for sure, they're not going to give him, credit where credit is due. But you just have to be the bigger person and keep pushing forward, regardless of how they're going to cover it.
How do you see it, Juan?
I love listening to Jesse. I was reminded of that commercial where every kid that participates gets a trophy. No matter what, no matter if you haven't repealed and replaced Obamacare in the first 100 days, no matter if you haven't passed tax reform, no matter if you haven't done infrastructure, you can say, oh, this is the most successful administration since FDR. And people say, oh, it's just Trump. Why bother with it? But let me just add on to this.
It's easy to rack up accomplishments if you just spend other people's money like President Obama did.
He's got none. So let me just say.
We're still working on repairing everything from the last president.
Let's get this comment so I can get Greg in here before we go.
But the part of it that really strikes me about this is let's leave apart all the partisan arguing. What a dog and pony show this was. You have a cabinet meeting, and in the cabinet meeting, you have every one of your folks praise you like you are Caesar? Oh, my God, what is going on? This is unbelievable.
That maybe some trying to keep the job.
Well, Greg, a lot of media is focusing on the fact that they did go around and have everybody say something nice about him. But the thing is that I was thinking earlier, the media did that for the president for the last 8 years. So you can't actually, as you're a Republican, you have to have your friends say nothing.
Dana, did George Bush do that? No.
I just love it how when Juan begins with leaving all the partisanship beside, then he launches into a partisan comment.
There was no partisan attack.
Yes, it was.
There's never been a cabinet meeting
show.
like that. You tell me about another cabinet meeting.
All right, well, I was just
like
about
that.
to.
Go right ahead.
Okay, if you've seen any of his meetings, this is how he does it. He has everybody go around. I've seen about a dozen of them. That's what he does. He's a different person. By the way, you notice that one person was missing, Dennis Rodman. He was already on the road to North Korea. But I actually find it kind of charming how he does this. It's just what he does. By the way, we're all judging him on what he does. I like a politician on what they don't do. The less, the better.
Yeah,
if you're good on one thing and one thing only, which is to eradicate ISIS and to end the terror threat, I don't care if you don't build the wall. I don't care if you don't cut the taxes. I don't care.
The wall will be built.
The wall
and it will be beautiful.
But the number one objective is security. The wall is part of that. But I really think that's where you got to go. But when I look at these people around the table, I think they knew that it was going to be a ride, but I don't think they expected Space Mountain. I mean, this is not the teacups.
Right.
I mean, this is every day when they show up for work. You know, they got a boss.
If they get to show up.
If they get to show up to work, it's like, you know, he packs more into 4 weeks than Obama did in 4 years.
You know, when you say that if they only do one thing, that's why I'm surprised that he doesn't go back and talk about the confirmation of Neil Gorsuch, because there are many conservatives who would say, if nothing else happens for the next 4 to 8 years, that's all I cared about.
Also, when you look at the people around the table, it's like the super friends of cabinet members. Everybody there is a heavy hitter.
I know, Matt.
Think about the people Obama had.
Bottom line for the president.
No, at least half of them. Come on.
His whole success.
I can't even remember their names.
Yeah, you remember any cabinet.
Ben Rhodes, remember that guy?
He wasn't a cabinet member.
He shouldn't be.
Kimberly, last word.
The bottom line.
I'm just saying that Obama hired
a silly man.
I'm just saying Obama was terrible at hiring.
Yeah, he hired yes men.
Oh yeah.
Can I have Kimberly give the last word, please?
Please, Kimberly.
President Trump will be successful and perhaps even win re-election if he has a growing economy.
Right.
That's it.
Boom.
That's what he needs to do.
All right. After talking about the GOP split for years, the Democrat, divide. It's spilling into public view. Bernie Sanders thinks his party's an absolute failure. Next.
Welcome back. Abraham Lincoln famously once said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Well, from the looks of it, the Democrats might want to take some advice from Honest Abe. Here's what Bernie Sanders, the runner-up for the 2016 Democratic presidential nomination, had to say about the Democrats over the weekend.
The current model and the current strategy of the Democratic Party is an absolute failure. Democratic Party needs fundamental change. The Democratic Party must finally understand which side it is on.
Senator Sanders, of course, lost to Hillary Clinton, who spent over $1 billion just to come up short against President Trump. Ms. Clinton's spending priorities during the campaign still have many Democrats upset.
The Hillary Clinton campaign did not spend their money on white workers, and they did not spend their money on people of color. They spent it on themselves. Let's be honest. They took $1 billion, and set it on fire and called it a campaign. You need to give the money back to the people, period.
All right, so truth bombs.
Yes, truth bombs it is. You know, the media was so focused on the alt-right and the friction going on during the campaign that they conveniently overlooked the alt-left, which is fundamentally anti-speech. You're seeing that on campus.
Yes.
Pro-radical. They'll excuse any behavior.
Alt-left.
And then you see Bernie Sanders. You know, this is a guy who called for, you know, a religious test on Christians during the confirmation hearing of Russell Voigt. He actually called for a religious test. So where are all the brave souls who condemned the travel ban to stop terrorists from coming here, but are okay with evangelicals not being allowed to be in office? The election of Trump was a political earthquake for both parties, and it told both parties that anything is possible. It's more upsetting to the Democrats because they went with a safe, miserable bet. They were the ones who didn't take the risk. And they had the risk in front of them, and they probably could have won.
With Bernie.
No, maybe with somebody else. Maybe with a Jim Webb. I don't know.
I don't know.
But that's going in a totally different direction than what Bernie and many of the people on the left, and that is a growing part of the Democratic Party, is the leftist piece. So I don't think they're going to actually go for a Jim Webb, though they
No, I know. It was an absurd comment.
But if you look at someone like Rahm Emanuel, who in 2006, one of the ways he was able to take back the majorities in the House was he recruited moderate, pro-gun, pro-life Democrats in order to run and win, but now there's that tension with the party. And Bernie Sanders is like the men going around the battlefield bayoneting the wounded of their own side, because he's making sure that they are going to have problems going throughout. They are in a position where they could actually try to win some of these seats in 2018, but I think that this tension will cause the Democrats even more problems. And then you have people like Elizabeth Warren, the senator from Massachusetts, who is very polarizing. This is not, I don't think that this is their answer back to winning. They are not going to be able to put forward any policies unless they win some elections, and these people are not the answer.
No, and so, Jesse, it's really unbelievable when you see this shift in the country with this alt-left and how vicious and visceral they are. They don't want to hear anyone else's viewpoint, just rampant discrimination against anybody who does not believe exactly what they think, and they will impugn bad motives and thoughts and intentions. And if you support Republican or you're pro the president or pro-Trump, then they say you're racist, you're sexist, you're a bigot, all-around bad person that doesn't deserve to have a voice or speak an opinion.
You're right. They're so fringe.
Judging.
You have the Black Lives Matter people. You have the Open Borders people. You have the Occupy Wall Street wing of the Democratic Party. But that's where the energy and the ideas are. And that's the problem with the Democratic Party, because you do have some responsible Democrats who are more mainstream, part of the Washington establishment, kind of more pro-Wall Street, and they can maybe win elections and raise money, but they can't get out the vote and they can't drive any voter excitement. So what they need to do is see if they can galvanize a good-looking, reasonably intelligent person that can kind of rally the party and speak.
He's thinking of himself.
Why am I giving the Democrats advice anyway? I don't even know what I'm doing. But
take it back, Jesse. Tell me you're kidding.
You know, I take it back. Run, Bernie.
Katy Perry.
No, but they need to get to kitchen table issues, back to Obamacare, back to college tuition, and back to wages, and maybe even go along with some of the Trump agenda, because if you kind of cater to independents, that's how Democrats win elections.
Jesse, let him run somebody from the Antifa, okay?
Sorry.
Boy, you never know that Trump is down there in the 30s in terms of approval. You never know that listening here. But I will say this.
It was down on election day, too.
Well, no, remember, there's such big divides among Republicans, especially people who are never Trumpers and Trumpers, and they want to go out.
Segment about the Democrats?
But I'm just saying, no, because the way you guys are talking, there's only division among Democrats. But let me just say this. There's a big congressional race in Georgia featuring a Democrat who right now has a slight lead, but it's very slight, Jon Ossoff. Ossoff is running pretty much along the lines that you've described, as sort of non-ideological, reasonable, wanting to reach out to people and say, you know what, we got to do better about our environment, we got to do better about educating our children, things that everybody can come to.
He's not a Bernie guy.
He is not a Bernie guy, and guess what? He has raised a record amount of money. Unlike what happened in Montana, what happened in Kansas, now you see the party gravitating to him, and I think not what we just saw from Bernie Sanders, not the single payer, not the kind of militant, angry,
He just showed up on the scene. They think they have a chance to win there. That's why the money is piling in.
That's what I'm saying.
They desperately need a win, not because he's so revolutionary or inspiring. I mean, people just met the guy. All right, ahead. Ivanka Trump sits down with Fox News, what she felt blindsided about after her father became president. Next, stay with us.